Oh, great. Just great. You're in my lane. What are you doing in my lane, Ferrari? That and more on today's episode of The Real Review, so stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. Everybody, I'm here with Joel. Why don't you go ahead and get slapped in the face with a loaf of bread? Cunningham.
That was a fun scene. I like that. It's pretty good. It might help me. I'm a little out of it. We talked about this earlier. Might wake me up a little bit to get slapped in the face with some loaves.
Got like 1 hour of sleep in the last 3 weeks?
Well, yes. The last 3 weeks. Last night, thankfully, finally managed to get some catch-up sleep, which I guess apparently you can't catch up on sleep.
No, you can't.
I don't understand that, but...
Yeah, you can't. You have to actually get consistent.
Okay.
That's how it works.
You just have to be that guy that actually goes to bed on time.
Sleep. Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever be that dude.
Hashtag science.
There you go.
Yes.
Well, I am here with Matt. Well, at least it's bubbly, hey.
Hey.
There you go.
Yes, bubbly.
Bubbly.
Love the bubblies.
I love the bubbly. That was a great British accent-ish, Americanized accent you did there.
Hello.
It was weird, I will say, to see Christian Bale actually doing his normal accent because he's British.
Yeah.
But you see him in so many movies where he does an American accent and he's so effective at it. It was like, oh, he's just being himself. It was fun. Yeah.
For sure. Anyways, welcome, Joel. Welcome, good to see you, and welcome everybody listening, tuning in to The Real Review. Just to give you kind of a reminder here, if you're tuning in for the first time or if you've heard it before, Real Review. Joel is the detailed, analytical, potentially skeptic, cynical,
a little bit,
and then I'm a little bit more fan oriented, to where I get more emotional towards things, and usually the emotion of things will outweigh my any critical response towards little small details that I might pick up in a film or something like that.
Yeah.
Or overly positive sometimes, or that could be my fault as well.
Yeah.
But we kind of blend the two together, give you our thoughts, our reviews, and we give you a letter grade at the end, and that's how we do The Real Review.
Yeah.
Like that, right?
How we roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like
it's
that?
Out of control.
That's good too. Good follow-up.
Good. Anyways, Joel, why don't you tell everybody how they can get connected?
Sure, Matt. There's some ways you can get connected for the podcast. You can check out our website, which is reelreviewmedia.com. We also have Facebook, facebook.com/reelreviewmedia, where I promise you will get some really cool stuff if you follow us on there. Mm-hmm. And then additionally, we have Instagram and Twitter, which are both at Real Review Media. Last but not least, we'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives, because we don't have a chance. We have very limited time, unfortunately, to see all of the content that is constantly being released. And so we'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives, and perspectives on stuff we have seen. So shoot us an email, reelreviewmedia@gmail.com.
Totally.
Have I done it, Matt?
Totally. You've done it great justice, Joel.
Sweet.
So let's just dive right in here. We got one main thing we want to talk about as far as the film side. And then, let's do this at the end, Joel. How about we take a quick dip into The Mandalorian, because that premiered. I'm a big Star Wars guy, and I think, and I know you're more like the original Star Wars guy.
I've been Star Wars.
I am OG Star Wars, and I'm new trilogy Star Wars. I'm not as much prequel Star Wars, although I do appreciate some of the stuff happening there.
Yeah.
Not as high on that. Definitely original is my favorite. And I'm out of my mind excited for Mandalorian, anything we're going to get on Disney Plus with it. And then also I'm really excited for The Rise of Skywalker. So we'll talk about some Mandalorian stuff after, but first let's talk about Ford v Ferrari, or Ford versus Ferrari, or Ford Ferrari.
I would just say Ford Ferrari.
Exactly. It's like Batman v Superman.
Yeah, there should be a period in there, but it's fine.
Yeah, I don't know what that's
my
about.
nitpicky side.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, so let me go ahead and break it down here. Ford v Ferrari. American car designer Carroll Shelby and driver Ken Miles battle corporate interference, the laws of physics, and their own personal demons to build a revolutionary race car for Ford and challenge Ferrari at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1966. Directed by James Mangold, and we like him. We like his work. And stars Matt Damon, Christian Bale, John Bernthal, Catriona Balfe, Josh Lucas, who always plays like that kind of guy.
Yeah.
Noah Jupe, who I love from A Quiet Place. Tracy Letts, Remo Drone, Ray McKinnon, a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you some backstory here. Growing up, I'm my dad's major car guy.
Okay.
Always went to the Indy 500 he went as a kid all the time. I went a ton of times as a kid as well. And while this is different kind of racing, the Ford GT, the GT40 was always like present. There was always models and pictures, like it was, and I didn't understand how revolutionary it was at the time.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, but as in watching this movie and obviously hearing my dad talk about it, we actually, I've met Carroll Shelby. My dad was friends with him, bought a car from him that he helped design back in the day.
Wow.
And he's, my dad's just an awesome like car guy. He's like, he's got all these really sweet, like, people that he knows and builds cars and like, it's freaking awesome. He's cool.
Awesome. Barrett Jackson, I'm sure every year checks out.
He used to take me out of school early to go to Barrett Jackson, which
great.
that was like one of my favorite things back in the day. So cool stuff like that. Unfortunately, I was trying to get to see this with him, but it just couldn't get the timetables to match up.
Yeah.
But so there's that history going into this movie, and he's telling me, I don't know how I feel about Matt Damon being Carroll Shelby. I still have to talk to him, to be honest, about he's like had some doctor's appointment stuff, but he I gotta hear what his thoughts were on this, because I know he saw it yesterday, I believe. Anyways, I'm interested to get your take on the movie first.
Okay. I was letting you go.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Let's do this, because I just to make it less confusing. So yes, I will go ahead and jump into this. I really like this movie.
Okay.
Really, really like this movie.
Yeah.
There are elements I wish they would have expounded upon. One specifically, and one I wish they wouldn't even had in the movie in its entirety.
Yeah.
And that's a scene towards the end. But I think that as a whole, I really, really like this movie. And I will say this right now, this might be my favorite. And this is not criticizing the movie in any way or his body of work, because he's probably been better in other movies, but I was emotionally more resonant with Christian Bale in this movie than any other of his other projects.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And I think this is my favorite Christian Bale role. It's my favorite, and I loved it. I loved everything that he had to do in this movie.
Yeah.
Matt Damon was great too, but really, really liked the movie. I felt like the racing stuff was like thrilling. The visuals, everything was awesome. I don't know if there was any CG elements or not. I couldn't really tell.
Oh, for sure.
And
there was a couple. Yeah, I saw them, but I get what you're.
Regardless, I was just like, wow, that's amazing. I loved the usually the family dynamic elements in these types of movies. I'm like, okay, I get it. But I really like this one.
Yeah.
There's just a part of it that I didn't care for at the end, or not that I didn't care for. It just hit me emotionally in a way I didn't want it to. And so I think that other than that, I really, really enjoyed this movie. And this movie, what I think really does when you like have this underdog story, it gives you a person to hate.
Yeah, very clearly.
But it gives you like two people to hate, kind of. You get like Ferrari in the competition. You're like, I'm against them. But then you have somebody who's on their side technically.
Should be.
Yeah. And you're like, I hate this guy.
Yeah.
And I really love that, because that really gives you something to root for, other than just the circumstance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that part resonated with me just on a basis of doing the work that I do at times.
Yeah.
When it's like you've got a team of people that are all supposed to be headed towards the same goal.
Yeah.
But the route that they see is completely divergent from the one that maybe you see. And they expect you to sort of move into their direction.
Right.
And it can be a really difficult. So I think that was one of the things about this movie for me personally that really resonated because of that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, really, really enjoyed it. I'm sure I'll probably think of some other positives here in a little bit, but what were your overall thoughts?
Very similar. I really enjoyed the film. I didn't think I would dislike it. It was one of those things where, like, just based upon the talent involved, the director who's coming out of Logan, which is one of my favorite movies of that year.
Yeah.
Knowing he can go into some really deep character dive type stuff as far as, emotional issues and kind of inner darkness and stuff. I figured he would be able to do that well with this film, and absolutely was the case. Christian Bale was for sure my favorite out of all the characters in the film. I think Matt Damon did a great job as the character.
Sure.
I think there's just something about Christian Bale and his connection with the emotion and his portrayal of it that just took it one step beyond.
Yeah.
So Matt Damon was great.
Yeah.
But I would say like Christian Bale, that's like
I almost felt like it was his movie. I felt like I get it that they're like co-leads, but I felt like it was Christian Bale's movie, kind of.
Agreed.
And there were elements where I could flip-flop on that and say, no, it's Matt Damon's, but I really felt more pull towards Christian Bale's character.
Agreed. I for sure did as well. I mean, even just the resonating of his family life and how that played out, and the inner demons that he was struggling with, whereas Carroll Shelby's story is kind of more just straightforward. It's like, racer that's no longer able to race, and he's moved into car making, and he's kind of caught between these two worlds. And
their chemistry together was excellent.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yes.
It wouldn't have worked without the chemistry of having Matt Damon on screen. I think the thing that's different is I think you could have come in and told just Ken Miles' story through Christian Bale, and it still would have been an excellent film.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you could have come in and just told Carroll Shelby's story and had it be the same kind of film and as excellent, you know?
For sure.
So I think that's what the big difference was for me, and kind of took his story to be in a more important place in the film.
Yeah.
Also as well, I really love the racing scenes. I think all of them were very nail-bitey in a way.
Yeah, they're like,
yeah, there was a lot of scenes I noticed. It was funny. I mean, they had, in most movies, it's tough with racing because it's like, well, eventually it's like, well, it's just a guy sitting in a car. How do you show this in a different way? So you had a lot of scenes where it was like a close-up shot of the actor sitting and driving, and then like their reaction to seeing, what's happening around them. And those got a little old. I think for a while, it's like, I started thinking like, you guys are going like 200 miles an hour or whatever, and you're doing these quick turns and like you're gonna just stop and like stare at somebody next to you for like 10 seconds. Like that was a little unrealistic, but at the certain point you're like, okay, this is dramatic, they're trying to make it its own thing. But it was a very intense film at times. It was a very impactful film, especially with non-spoilers, but kind of the way the film wraps up and goes into sort of the next chapter of things with everything in the story. It's very touching, and it opened up a world with these characters and these cars as well that I knew a little bit of, but is really interesting to me. So like now when I see a Shelby GT or something like that, I can go, oh, that's where that historically is coming from, and that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So all of those elements really worked for me. I think where, if I was going to get into some more of the negative side of things, where it started to kind of fall apart with me is it felt like it was a very bloated story. I mean, we're looking at a 2.5 hour runtime here, basically. There was so many elements of this story. You're dealing with Henry Ford's daddy issues. You're dealing with corporate, corporate mindsets and red tape. You're dealing with like a rival company. You're dealing with family drama. You're dealing with personal inner demons, and how physics literally works and stuff. There was so much going on that there was times where I kind of felt like I needed a little bit less. And sadly, the weird way that I almost felt, and I think there's people that are going to totally agree with me on this or disagree, maybe you, the family issue, and especially the relationship he had with his son, felt sort of needless to me. I get it, and it helped me to resonate, especially with his son more, but his son and wife played a very small role, I think, in the overall big picture of what was happening in this world. It impacted his ability maybe to keep a level head and do the things. And I'm talking about Ken Miles' character, to do things that he did. But their role in that, because of the way it concluded, because of the story that we're telling, really didn't wrap into the bigger picture all that much. And it felt like if those elements had been much smaller and much less. I mean, we had scenes where it's literally just him for like 5 or 10 minutes interacting with his wife, or 5 or 10 minutes interacting with his son. And I was just constantly thinking, like, can we get back to the cars a little bit? Can we get back to the Ford thing a little bit? That was my personal...
Right, and that's fine. I think I agree to an extent, but I actually think that was needed, and it made me personally resonate with Ken Miles' character more.
Yeah.
Like, be like, oh, this dude's, he's a dad, he's doing the best he can, he's a loving husband, he's doing the best he can, like... And like those interactions, I thought there were some really like endearing moments and stuff like that, and how and it might be different for me because I think about like how I can pass along stuff that I want to experience things with my kids in the future, that kind of stuff. And
I think it's stuff that will resonate strongly, especially if you have a son or have a wife and family. That's where I felt like I got it. But at the same time, it just felt It was like if they could have taken 15% of it to 25% of it and just kind of cut it out,
Sure.
make it a little less there.
Yeah. I loved, let me say this before you dive in this, because I don't really have a lot of negative things to say about this movie. I did really love, I was talking about chemistry between Matt Damon and Christian Bale. I think that they have this continual, like they don't talk to each other a lot. They have like this unspoken relationship where they ask like a question and then they get like a half answer, and the guy like knows what the guy's talking about. Like they know what each other are, they know what they're thinking about.
Yeah, they did good.
And
with
they act back and forth based upon that. And I think a lot of that is portrayed well, like in that fight scene. It's portrayed in the trailer, so you see what happens, but like there's like a bag of groceries and they just get into a fight and there's not really any words, but then like the fight is just what's needed to clear the air between them. Yeah. You know, and like,
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Two people that live lives that are very like on the edge.
Right.
Always, love driving fast and being crazy in their cars. It would make sense that that's kind of how they would resolve it. They're not going to have a civil conversation. They're probably just going to come to arms and beat the crud out of each other until one of them finally is just like, all right, I'm done here.
Right.
So I really like that.
Yeah.
I think the two sides of it as well, that the two sides of it total that I didn't like was one, a little bit, and I can't say I didn't like, I just felt like it was a bit too much there, was the family thing. The other side of it a little bit is I felt like the dialogue at times felt a little too on the nose, and the beginning and ending portions of the film the beginning in particular felt a little slow to start. And it kind of was like, I'm trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be going with this, because, again, they were hopping to so many different
we started
issues
off with,
and so many different
Carroll Shelby's win.
Right.
Yeah.
And then quickly we're like, okay, but it's not about Carroll Shelby. And then we go into like, well, what's happening with the Ford Motor Company? And it's like, oh, well, it's kind of about the Ford Motor Company, but it's really not. And then we go to Ken Miles' character, and it's like, oh, it's about kind of him struggling to get along or, figure out what he wants to do in life and where he needs to go to be a successful family. But then that's not really what it's about. And it ends up being about something that was very interesting to me, which was like that Ford v Ferrari and that, progression of achieving and accomplishing something under bad circumstances. But like that was the main, I would say, point, thrust, the main big thing they were trying to get to. But we had to go through all these other subplots that, again, were important, but just kind of like not as important. Yeah. And so it ended up feeling kind of slow to me in the beginning. And it kind of, once we got into the point where they're like, actually a team and working on this and moving forward, then things really kicked into, not to be cheesy, but into gear. Yeah. And really felt like they were cruising. I'm making all those puns today. Really felt like they were cruising and moving to the point where it was a very gripping ending, and it was a very compelling, I will say, how things turned out. Yeah. Because it doesn't necessarily turn out the way you would expect. Especially with the ending. Yeah. And I think, to me, the sad thing is like, I kind of felt like as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, Oscar. Yeah. Like, you can't do this in a certain way and expect, the Oscar crowd to take notice of it. It really felt like, and it's true to probably what happened, but the way it was portrayed with the characters acting the way they did and the way that it's shot is very like, okay, we're just trying to emotionally really resonate something here, which was done effectively. Yeah.
True. And the more I talk about it and think about it, it makes me like it even more. And I think, specifically with Christian Bale's character, Ken Miles, I think that might have been one of my favorite parts, because you see like his joy when he's driving and like how he's talking to the car, talking to himself, and like all the technical elements.
Like, you got it. Come on.
Like he's yelling, and then he's just like laughing and like all this stuff, and really, really love that. And I don't think I've ever seen a Christian Bale play a character like this genuinely happy, unless you're counting The Prestige, kind of,
or in a weird, quirky way, American Psycho. But
that
that's
was
more due to mental issues. Yeah. So,
but anyways, I just really, really enjoyed this, and makes me want to do a little bit more research too. So obviously, a lot of the events in this happen in real life. And it's not really spoilers, so I'm going to talk about it. If you don't want to listen to any more, actually, let's give a grade, and then I'll kind of get into it real quick.
Sure.
I'm gonna give it a 92.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's much
really
higher
liked
than
it. A minus.
Okay, wow.
And I don't know, just really enjoyed it. I want to see it again. There's stuff that I really like resonated with emotionally. Yeah. I was like, that's so good. But yeah, what do you got?
Well, I think because of the reasons I mentioned, I'm gonna give it an 84.
Okay.
I was floating like weirdly back and forth between like 81 and 85, and went as high as like 86, but I think that's kind of good midpoint
Sure.
for me. The weird thing is I can say that I probably liked this film more than most of the other films I've seen this year.
Yeah.
And still give it that letter grade, and it still might, hint,
Yeah, we'll
might
see.
show up on my best films of the year.
Top 10, yeah.
But to me, it's like now that I've seen it, I can approach these other things that I maybe didn't feel like were as necessary to the film, and just kind of know they're there.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah,
totally. Okay, so let's talk about this. Spoilers. Obviously, it's real life, so I kind of struggle with telling somebody it's spoilers because it's a real life thing.
yeah.
But anyway, spoilers to the movie if you haven't seen it. Take care. Go see it and come back and listen if you want to. But okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Earlier I mentioned up front the one thing that I wanted to see more of was the actual design of the Ford GT.
Mhm.
Like I wanted to see that process instead of like Carol Shelby just being, hey, come check this out real quick.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, cool, it's there. Like, all right.
Yeah.
What happened to get to that point? That's a part that I want to see. But I think that was really it. The part that I didn't want to see, and I get why they did it, and it was full circle for Carol Shelby, was them actually showing the scene of his kid watching him die.
Yeah.
Watching Ken Miles die.
Yeah.
In that car crash. And I was like, I didn't want to see that.
Yeah.
And I get it. They did that whole bit where Carol Shelby's like having an emotional moment, just like at the beginning of the movie, speeding off down the road at the end.
Yeah.
And I understand it. For me, I was like, I don't want to see that.
Yeah. It felt, again, the way they shot that, the close up on the kid and well, like medium close up, the way they shot that, the way they projected that. I mean, even with the earlier, like, well, you got to get out of the car, and they kind of set the whole thing up. It felt that again, not to say that's what it's there for because it's part of the actual story, but it felt like Oscar bait. It felt like a way that they could have done this would just be to kind of cut to black.
Yeah.
Have that happen and then cut to black and then kind of jump forward. But it's like the close up on the kid and the people running and the flames and the. I
would have rather them cut to black because I think the scene before that was when they had just. Well, they didn't technically win the race, but they finished the race. They walked off. We got more work to do or whatever.
Right.
If they would have went to black and did the whole the Ford went on to win.
Yeah,
and then 67, 8, 9, whatever. 66, 7, 8, 9, and then Ken Miles tragically died. Like if I actually would have done that, I think I would have loved it even more.
I agree. That would have been a better ending to me. I think it felt like a fourth act. Yeah. And like an unnecessary.
Like, why did they have to do that?
It was like a liner note that they filmed, and they just felt like it was so good that they wanted to keep it on there.
Yeah.
I think what they'll say is that, is out of respect for Ken Miles, but it really felt like an opportunity to give Matt Damon some really good acting moments. Yeah. Because, that was his most, those were his most emotionally strong moments, the whole film almost. Yeah. Dealing with the sadness that he's got inside. And but again, it was like, and they made that moment about Matt Damon's character. Yeah. But they had set up this whole time this relationship he has with his son and his family, and his son is like completely like whatever about it almost. And it's like, so if you're gonna show the son, you're gonna move into this with it being about the son, then make it about the son later on. Don't make it just about like Matt Damon and how he's struggling and why this is so bad for him, or Carol Shelby's character. So it felt a little unnecessary, felt a little forced. I'm like, in the future, I might just stop the film there, not because I'm like depressed if I watch it, but just like that was a fine ending. Yeah. That you could have ended it and done exactly what you said, and it would have been like tragically, Ken Miles lost his life. Because
it still kind of ended mildly down a little bit because of the whole like weird ruling when Bruce McLaren actually won because he started farther back in the pack.
It like that bittersweet ending.
Like what? Yeah. Like that would have been fine bittersweet ending, and this one they're like bittersweet too. Yeah, way more bitter.
Yeah, if this was a different kind of film, I think that ending would have been perfect, but it really didn't feel like they earned that second ending enough for me to be there. And I think that's honestly why I rated it. One of the reasons as well that I rated it.
I would have given this thing, if it would have ended how I'm thinking about it right now, I would have given it like a 98.
I would have definitely been in the 90s if they had done differently with the beginning and the end to me, and then maybe changed some of the other aspects I mentioned. But it definitely would have been in the 90s.
For sure.
So.
Anyways, that's going to wrap up our review of Ford v Ferrari. Yeah. I want to take a couple of seconds here. We don't have to go into a deep dive because I know you're not all the way caught up, but I want to talk about our next thing, and that's
please don't spoil it.
That's The Mandalorian. Yeah. Okay. Disney Plus. Let me just start off by saying Disney Plus is taking us back a little bit. not necessarily in a bad way. I think it's perspective, a matter of preference, or like how reserved you can be in a certain situation. But with the evolution of streaming services, whether it be Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, whatever that is, we've grown accustomed to being able to binge an entire season within a day or a couple days or a week, whatever it is.
Yeah, but Disney don't play that game.
No, Disney Plus is like, hey, you're going to get an episode a week, and that's what we're doing. I kind of like that. I kind of like that element because I'm like, oh, now I got to wait for something. Like there's kind of a thing of like, oh, there's something to look forward to with this, you know?
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
There's so much content out there too. It's kind of nice that like, hey, I can, jump around to my content. I don't have to like binge to stay on track with everybody because otherwise, spoilers.
Yeah.
It's like crap.
And I think it gives you an opportunity to actually process what actually just happened in that one episode as opposed to being like, I just watched 4 episodes of Daredevil. It was awesome, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I can't really tell you about which episode was what because I watched them all back to back. Anyways, so I do like that element of it. It's kind of refreshing. But to specifically talk about The Mandalorian, I've seen episodes 1 and 2. You've seen 1. Let's talk about 1. I really, really liked 1. Liked what they're setting up there. And there's only 8 episodes this season, but they're already started shooting season 2, just an FYI. And it's great. I think they're heading in a great direction with this thing if they can keep it on that path. And with episode 2, just so you know, episode 2 almost feels like a continuation of episode 1 in a sense of where like, and this is actually why I'm thinking that they released the second episode like 3 days later, because instead of just waiting another week, it was like it seemed more like it could have been the same episode.
Right. It's a 2-part episode. You can see that.
Right.
Because they're setting up the story, they're setting up the characters and the world, even though we know it, but the world these characters are in. And you really need to get that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really, really like it. I want the run times to be a little longer, though. They've been sitting around like 32, 33 minutes or something like that. And
that's the constant complaint. It's like, they're so short.
I know. As long as they're doing what they need to do and effectively, and they're not just biding time for something, like I can be okay with that if they use that time effectively. But I think what it is right now, it's good. There's been a lot of little like chuckles I've had at some things. I'm like, that's kind of funny. Like little things. Talking about like Taika Waititi's character in the first episode, IG-11, great, loved it.
I think what I'm liking in a way so much about it is what I liked about Rogue One, is that it doesn't feel like they're trying to accomplish anything specifically. It really just feels like they're just trying to tell a story.
Yeah, and
everything has happened with the other films that I haven't enjoyed and the new content, it really feels like, oh, well, we got to have this, we got to have that, and we got to go in this place, like with the Solo movie and the Last Jet and everything. Yeah. With this movie or show, it really just feels like this is a story about this aspect of the universe, the Star Wars universe. And so I've liked that. It feels simple, it feels approachable, and it feels like I'm not having to bring in a ton of like heritage of the other characters and stuff. And now that doesn't mean it doesn't tie in, because it totally does at times. I mean, they have the the Jabba the Hutt eye at one point, and little creature,
that robot,
the eye robot, and there's like things that definitely tie into the overall story, which is like a neat addition versus like a forced like, well, this is why Han Solo is called Han Solo,
Right. I hate that.
Yeah. So I like that.
It's really, really cool, especially if you're familiar. So the producers, actually the director of the first episode, Dave Filoni, he's helmed and helped create and write most of the stories for and like help with the animation process for Star Wars, Clone Wars, Rebels, most recently Resistance. But some of them get really dark and stuff. And it was really, really cool seeing him work on this project, his first like live action piece that's for Star Wars related. And him and Jon Favreau are friends because Jon Favreau did voice acting on Clone Wars and Rebels, I believe. Yep. And he is so tied into the canon, the lore, and all that stuff. So when they're talking about like all the sigils and the stuff of Mandalore and where they come from and all that stuff, they're like super heavy on that. And that, I think those are little treats for people that are familiar with all the canon material. And I think that's awesome. Like when he's going down his little like underground like layer where the Mandalorians are hanging out or whatever, that sort of stuff. And you're seeing like people in all the armor and the Mandalore sigil, like the emblems and the
I
people.
thought that was really cool.
Like he got an armor upgrade. Like he's like I think the whole season he's getting like upgrades and
It's
stuff.
like a deeper meaning for him,
Yeah.
which is cool. It's a story. It's like a coming to their age sort of story, which I really enjoyed. I think the only aspects of this I haven't liked so far, one, and this is just a personal thing, Nick Nolte as I forget his Khalil or whatever, whoever the guy that I've spoken thing.
Yeah,
he was tough for me just because Nick Nolte's such a distinct voice. I kept thinking, oh, it's Nick Nolte doing a voiceover. But I like the character, and then additionally, there's just a sense right now that everything feels very production design wise and setting wise, staging, it feels very simple and we're used to these Star Wars that have like so much in them. Maybe I'll come to like it, or maybe they'll improve on that, but everything just feels a little, I guess, cheap and simple in some of the worlds and some of the ways they're doing things. It's like, oh, that guy's just a fat American dude that he's like talks like an American and he's got a different colored skin, and it's like there's not really a mythos to that guy. It's just a dude that they happen to put like some different colored paint on him and prosthetics. Things like that where I'm just like, I could do with a little more like design and intent behind these different stagings and characters and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's a very minor note.
Yeah.
I think that, again, the characters in the story so far have been good enough to really keep me engaged and enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's only one episode in. So.
Yeah, and I didn't know, like, I'm excited for, like, kind of where they're just went on the cliffhanger at the end of one, like, where they kind of take, I'm like, oh, that's different. I like that. Let's see what happens with this.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's intentionality. Like, and I'm going to maybe minor spoil this, but there's a big shootout close to the end of the first episode. Yeah. And it's like, these guys are so stupid. They literally just like standing out in the open, like shooting their guns. And there's a droid there that's literally like got like perfect aim. And they're just like, I'm just going to stand out in the open and shoot my laser at it. It's like, there's some lack of intentionality there where it's like, if these people are getting in a firefight, they're going to take cover. They're not really, because, it removes a threat. They don't feel like a threat. They feel like as stupid as they can be. I don't know. Things like that.
Anyways, check out episode 2. I thought they were coming out on Tuesdays, and I got so disappointed when I found out that it's Friday. Actually, that they're going. So we have to wait till.
What would
Friday.
you give like the series as a whole so far, rating wise, just from what you've seen?
B plus, A minus. Really like it. Yeah,
I would say close to B.
Yeah,
around B, like 85.
I don't know. I think it's enjoyable. The second episode, I think, because Jon Favreau said it, there's a little bit for everybody in it. There's going to be a little bit more like, it felt very Indiana Jones to me, and
That's a good way of putting it.
I think that. I think that we're going to see a little bit more of that, but it might be a little bit more family friendly than some stuff that we've seen recently, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that it's something that could be something I share with my kiddos pretty soon. So
cool.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Anyways, anything else you want to add to that at all?
No, nothing.
Sweet. Anyways, everybody, thank you so much. And let me give you a reminder, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, @reelreviewmedia, and see what's up. See what's up on all those social platforms. Send us an email at reelreviewmedia@gmail.com. And it's been a pleasure hanging with you today. Joel, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Sweet. It's been real.
It's been real.